Hello and welcome. Today I have a special guest on my channel, Mr. Maxwell Baker. He is a top producing agent in the world of Final Expense, and I brought him on to share his story and his journey in life insurance so that we can help other agents out there who are going through the grind and trying to figure out IMOs, leads, all the things. Maxwell, I know you close up shop. I've dialed with you in the dial rooms. I have seen you easily do 10K a week in production, but I want to know on your best week, just to kind of let everyone know who Maxwell is, on your best week, how much AP have you closed up on?
Like 24,000 and submit.
Beautiful. 1 week, y'all. So to say that Maxwell knows what he's doing is an understatement. He is a top
Mm.
producer. So I would get a pen and paper and listen, see if you can learn any golden nuggets. So thank you so much, Max, for joining me on my channel. So let's start with
No
this because
problem. Thank you for having me.
yeah, you're welcome. I actually don't know your whole story. So I kind of want to start from square one. How did you even come about doing life insurance and what did you do right before?
Yeah, so I live in Florida now. However, I was actually raised in Canada, but I'm American by birthright. So no one make fun of my citizenship because it's a sensitive subject and I will attack you. I'm not even joking. Anyway, so I moved to Florida by myself, not knowing anybody, because I had to get away from my past and the people because I had kind of a rough upbringing and I had really bad habits. I'm not going to get into that here, but I believe that if you want to change yourself, you have to change your environment. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to move to the other side of the continent. So I did that by myself, and I didn't really have a job at the time. I just kind of did it. And then I had three offers on the table. One was solar, one was insurance, and then one was logistics brokering and wholesaling. I had four offers. And then I just looked at the kind of the commission structure and the actual business aspect of insurance, getting paid quickly, getting paid multiple times, being able to build a hierarchy and being able to just close on the phone. My buddy's like, "Oh, Max, this is you all day." I'm like, "Okay, sick." So I signed up. Can I say IMO's names here?
I honestly I don't say IMO's names only because other people on YouTube say they get a cease and desist. So I guess maybe dance around it. I don't know the full rule on that.
Okay. Well, I'll give a big hint here. The name of the IMO, I can't even do that because I'll give it away. Anyway, so I got involved with a three-letter IMO. It wasn't like a bad IMO. I don't have like much disdain for them. Um, and we were doing mortgage protection. That's all they did. That was their bread and butter, mortgage protection, mortgage protection, mortgage protection. And I finally got licensed. And then I hit the phones. I spent like $400 on really aged leads, and I set 15 appointments my first week. I thought I was like the hottest, you know what? I didn't swear. I thought I was hot, you know what? But nobody showed up for my Zooms, not even one, right? So I was so bad at setting appointments and actually getting the appointment that I actually had to switch in home. So I did in home for like about 10 months, and I actually quite liked it. I was very good at it. Had a very, very good issue rate from the beginning because from the beginning, the person who trained my upline, shout out Gus Villagran, still a fan, we still talk, um, would focus on issue rates and underwriting. We didn't have insurance toolkits. Insurance toolkits wasn't around then. So I had like a spreadsheet about this medication, this condition was here, right? And so I had to learn how to actually think and look at application questions and underwrite. So I was going in home in Florida, smashing out apps then for mortgage protection and having a pretty good time doing it. I mean, it's kind of gross. I couldn't see how a woman would be comfortable going to like a random house doing mortgage protection because like you go to some sketchy areas, you go to some sketchy people's houses and there's cockroaches. I mean, the way some of these people live is disgusting. Not all the time, but I really, really enjoyed it. And then all of a sudden, there was a big hurricane 2 years ago, and I had to evacuate to Orlando. And I was trying to set a point. I was trying to call people, but I had no Wi-Fi. And I'm like, crap, maybe I should give virtual a try again. Virtual is defined as a Zoom, right? So I went and I was like, I'm going to try it again, whatever. And then that week, I actually had my best production week for mortgage protection. I can't remember what it was, but it was like around 12,000. Mortgage
Okay.
protection, you're typically getting larger cases depending on how you sell. And then I finally got virtual. And then after a while of doing virtual, I just really kind of got sick of mortgage protection, not because of the actual sale, but because it was appointments, because you're going to get no showed a lot, typically around 50 to 70. If you have a 70% sure rate, that's amazing. But I was typically around 50 to 60,
Because
right?
these are so, because I've never done mortgage protection. I've only done final expense. Mortgage protection, that's like working class. We're talking about people like in their 30s, 40s. Is that kind of the demographic?
Correct. Yeah. So primarily they're going to, it depends. It's very state contingent, right? So if you do a lot of Florida business, a lot of people are going to be retired. But
Mm,
the challenge is regardless of what it is, a lot of people are going to be working. So you have to set your appointments, a lot of them in the evening,
mm.
right? So how we would do it is we'd start during that, we start dialing in the morning to start setting appointments for the next day, same day, or the following day. You go 2 days out, I mean, no one's going to show up. Point being though is that you're kind of a slave to your calendar. So what's good about you set these appointments and then you got to wait or you got to dial or do something else, and then you hopefully they show up, and a lot of times they don't, right? And it just I don't want to say it was disheartening, but it was really inconvenient because you'd have an appointment at a weird time and then they wouldn't show up,
Now,
right?
how long were you doing mortgage protection, like in total, before you started looking? Because it sounds like you're about to look elsewhere and probably find
Correct.
facts. How long were you in mortgage protection?
About a year and a half. I did pretty
Okay.
good. I was pretty good there. That's where I met Mr. Nitafan.
Okay.
Shout out Johnny Nitafan. And then he was doing this whole one call close thing, or as I like to say, Juan, Jaun, I think. Juan, one
Mhm.
call close. And I'm like, I like the idea of getting on the phone, you know, first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock, dialing for like maybe a good 6 to 8 hours, getting one to three sales, and then being done, right? And then you can do whatever after. But not being a slave to the actual appointments was really appealing to me. And
Mm.
it was such a simple sale because for mortgage protection, a lot of things have to right for that appointment to go down. You have to get them on the phone, they have to show up. Both the husband and the spouse have to be there,
Yeah.
which I mean, just because they say they're going to be there doesn't mean they're going to be there, right? So like there's just too many factors that come into play of, is this going to be an actual appointment? And I hated that. I mean, you could double book. There's ways to do it, and there's people that are successful doing mortgage protection. I'm not bashing mortgage protection. Okay,
You
I
just
could have
kind of
kept
got burnt
doing
out.
that, but
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do it anymore. And what really bothers me is that when it comes to lead flow, and if you're a new agent, lead flow is the most important thing. Leads, appointments. That's all this business is. Okay. If the mortgage protection, if mortgage like transactions go down, your lead's probably going to go down. Think about it. People aren't refinancing or buying new homes. They're not filling out leads. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? It's going to be harder to get them, and your production is going to go down. So there's about 10,000 Americans turning 65 a day. So final expense is a huge market, and they're just always going to be there. And you don't have to be a slave to your calendar. So that's why I kind of liked it. I'm going to close this
Yeah.
a little bit.
And let me ask you another question too, before we dive into your experience in final expense. You had mentioned when you first started and then you went into the mortgage protection, you did virtual first. And you had that god awful experience of you
Oh
set
God.
appointments, people didn't show. But
Yeah.
then transitioning into the home, that's where you were like, aha, I can earn money. And then the hurricane, you were like, ah, I'm going to try it over the phones. But when you went back to the phones, it sounds like you had a completely different experience. Why do you think that is? Like, what was the difference between that first initial time you were doing virtual and the second time? Because those were both for mortgage protection.
Yeah. Well, it's just general experience and competence, right? I think it's learning something new. So being proficient in one industry, whether it's sales, whether it's construction, like for myself, and then going to do something completely different, it is a huge like attack on your ego, especially if you're a narcissistic male like I am. Half
Did,
kidding,
okay,
but I
but
mean,
did your training change at all? Like when you did virtual initially, because you said shout out to a gentleman who really trained you up face to face.
uh,
Did you get that same kind of training when you first started virtual?
yeah, I mean, the
Okay.
training was all the same because it was a virtual team because I joined right after COVID,
Okay.
right? Well, or I mean, COVID. What's COVID in Florida? I mean, come on, they had COVID for like a week, but however, they pivoted very quickly to virtual,
Okay.
which getting somebody that's older on a Zoom is extremely challenging. The challenge is that getting them on the Zoom, by the time they get on the Zoom, it may take too long and they might be frustrated. It's really hard to backpedal and get somebody back into a buying mood If there's already sales pressure or resistance in the beginning, and they're already pissed off to have to get on the Zoom, that's tough,
Yeah.
right? So I did not like the whole Zoom shtick. I did it, but I was like, there has to be a better way.
Okay. So it sounds like then the experience face to face built up the confidence. You knew the sales cycle, and so you could kind of the coming back into the virtual was a little bit easier for you, but now you started to question the process cycle, the one-leggers and all that stuff. Is this how you're transitioning into Vex?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because Johnny was like, yeah, like I'm like, well, how many appointments are you doing? He's like telling me how much money he's making. He's
So
like, yeah,
it's
dude. He's like, we don't
Johnny
do it.
that you were talking to about the
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah.
Okay.
Johnny, I was talking to because Johnny and I we've always been close, right? We were on the same team at our previous IMO. And then this whole one call close thing sounded pretty sick. And I'm like, dude, if I don't have to set appointments, I just get someone on the phone, keep them on the phone. I knew I had the skill to sell over the phone. I
Mm-hmm.
just, I'm that guy. I have the confidence where if someone hands me a script, I'm going to learn it in 2 days, not a freaking month. And if I get someone on the phone, I keep them on the phone, I'm getting the business. I knew I had that skill. It was just a brand new script. So that comes with being able to have the confidence and actually attacking something with intensity. But I knew I could do it. I mean, Johnny, you're not that special. Johnny Menfin's not that special. I'm not that special. You're not that special. Like it's
Yeah,
just
we're not
we
that
just
special.
show up every day and we do the damn thing. Oh, I said the D word. Sorry, Ashley's kids. Don't say that.
Okay, so then let me ask you this because there's a lot of agents out there. Again, I really do get so many emails from so many different agents in different walks in their journey, and they're struggling. They're
Mm-hmm.
really, really struggling.
Yeah.
A lot of them on the financial front, trying to keep things afloat because everything
Yeah.
seems to be crumbling. Was there ever
Yeah.
a time in your journey where what you were doing was not keeping up financially with the outgoing costs? And if that ever happened, what did you do to improve upon that situation?
Oh yeah. I mean, guys, like it's when you're starting in a business position where you're actually funding leads. I mean, it's scary, right? So a couple of mistakes I made in the beginning was number one, not being consistent. It wasn't the training, it wasn't the leads, it wasn't the comp structure. I mean, because there's people making money on every team. Okay. Not everyone is, but not everyone's going to make money in this industry. It's the sad reality. But I wasn't being consistent. I wasn't tracking my numbers. And a lot of the times it was something that I was saying or doing. So what did I do? I mean, I just straight up asked my upline. I had a great upline, right? He made a lot of money in the industry and he actually walked the walk. Like he knew his stuff when it came to life insurance and still does. We still talk to this day. But I just straight up asked him. I was like, hey, like, what's going on here? And he looked at my numbers. He's like, well, your issue rate last month was like 50. He's like, so we got to get that up. Or we had a lot of people, withdraw their case before it issued. Right. Okay. So maybe it sounds like you're kind of free look selling too much. But I straight up just asked him, hey, what's going on here? But it was really hard for us to really look at the data because I didn't have said data. So I would
Mm.
stress building the skill and building the habit of tracking your numbers honestly, right?
Yeah.
It's all about, especially in the beginning, guys, it's all about being able to look at your numbers honestly and say, okay, maybe that person wasn't mean. Maybe I sounded, condescending on the phone. Maybe I was talking too fast, or maybe I was being too pushy, or whatever it may be. But I mean, in the beginning and still to this day, you have to track your numbers honestly and be able to receive criticism, right? And super important. Another big mistake I made, which a lot of people don't talk about this, is that you need to have separate bank accounts. Okay. So one is just dedicated for insurance deposits. That's it. You don't go grocery shopping with it. You don't go to the cigar bar with it. You made that mistake. You don't go party with it. Okay, for the younger folk or Ashley. Ashley still has fun. And it's just dedicated to insurance. And then recommend getting like some sort of business credit card or some sort of card that you just pay for business expenses. So that's your CRM, your dialer, blah, 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 blah. Number one for taxes, but number one, you could actually see what's going on with cash going in, cash going out.
So
That's
let me
very, very important.
let me ask you
Don't
this. So
commingle.
yes. So let me ask you this. So separate accounts, you have to see cash going in, cash going out. How do you go about structuring your business expenses? So, like for me personally, I will always have revolving whatever I need for my full monthly expenses. So, to keep my
Mm-hmm.
business running day in and day out, every month is like $4,500. So I will
Mm-hmm.
always have $4,500 just sitting there. And then I have a
Mm-hmm.
chargeback fund, which because I write just certain amount of carriers, I don't need a large chargeback fund because I can
Mm-hmm.
rewrite business quickly to make up for it. So I have like right now just $1,500 in a chargeback fund. And I
That's
actually in
plenty
the
for you.
last two
Yeah.
months haven't touched it, but it's there.
Yeah.
So I have that there. And then say Meta takes, $1,100 for an ad set. The next time I close a policy, I replenish that. Anything that is above that 4,500 and that
Mm-hmm.
1,500, I move that to my personal account. That's how I can pay off debt. That's how I can pay off my bills, knowing my business is still staying afloat.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so it's kind of a similar mindset. I spent a lot of this year because like this, no, the past 6 months, because in the past 6 months, I really started making money. I've always been able to sell, but selling and actually making money is two very different things. We should talk about that.
Yeah,
We should talk about that too, because just because you're on the leaderboards doesn't mean you're actually making a large amount of money. That was a problem that I
thousand
had for a
percent.
long time, and it
Oh,
sucks. So
yes.
what I do currently here, this is what you're supposed to do. What Ashley just said is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have keep a certain amount of money in the account, and then what my mentor taught me was 20% from your deposits is going to go to taxes and a chargeback fund. He's like, and you shouldn't be getting you shouldn't be getting a lot of chargebacks. I mean, they're going to happen, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But you pay your chargebacks off in cash. You do not let that roll your upline because that's an unethical thing to do. Do not be that person. Don't
Mhm.
be that person. And then you pay, and that's your tax and chargeback fund. So he lumps 20% for that.
Okay.
Okay, and then he says another 10% for like leads and travel. Say if you need to go to a conference or do anything like that, and then the rest is to pay off your leads. Well, no, so because they did it differently. They bought leads. They didn't self-generate leads,
Mm.
right? So we
Yeah.
wouldn't spend as much on leads. We would buy expensive, high quality leads, which
Gotcha.
that's a whole another story. But pretty much what Ashley said, what I do currently, because I don't have like a family, right? I just keep like my monthly expenses in one account, which my monthly expenses is like $3,500 a month. Like I'm a single guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't really spend that much money. The most expensive thing I spend on is cigars, not gonna lie. But I
You
just keep
enjoy the
around like
finer things in life, you
the
know?
finer things in life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't get the stuff that you can get at the Dollar General and call that a cigar. You gotta.
I like a nice puff. But I keep around like for my personal account, all I'll do is I'll keep around like my business expenses, which is around 42.
Okay.
And what I'll do is I'll make sure that my every month I'll pay off my American Express Business Platinum. So that will go to around 40, call it around 5 grand a month. And then I'll have my business account that will stack up the deposits, right? So this is building as weeks go on. Are you with me so far? The Amex business.
Uh-huh.
And then my business deposits are growing. And then at the end of the month, I'll pay this off, whatever is remaining here. I'll put it into my personal account, then divide it into paying off
Okay.
debts or whatever. That's what I typically do, or a tax fund. Realistically, I don't have a tax fund right now because I've been paying all my money into debt. I'm almost
Mm-hmm.
debt free, which is awesome. I only have like
Yeah,
3K left to pay off, which is
let's
nice.
go.
All the debts from Canada, all
I'm
the
gonna
student
catch up to you.
loans.
I'm working towards that goal too.
You got a little more expenses than I do. I don't have any kids. But
Yeah.
the idea is, guys, is just the main thing is separate your business account from your personal account. Because when April comes around, you're gonna be losing your mind going through bank statements, highlighting everything like I had to do. Sucks. And just so you could actually see it. It's really cool, guys, when you have zero in your business checking account at first, and then the deposits are coming in, and then maybe you have like a little bit of business expenses, you pay it all off, the rest is profit. Bang. Move that
Yes.
over.
And
That's cool. That's what you want.
the key is you do not let off the gas. So those moments feel good, but if you don't show up and continue the activity, it's a wash, rinse, and repeat. You will fall behind. I
Oh
think this
yeah.
I think this is a big reason why agents like they fail out of the business is because you don't watch your numbers. Like you can't even maintain an apartment with a car payment if you're not watching your own personal finances. Your car will get repoed. You will get
Mm-hmm.
evicted. Like it is the same thing in Final Expense. If you're not watching your money, you will get kicked out of this industry. Like
Yeah.
you have this is such an important. I'm really happy that we touched on that because that is a big
Yeah.
proponent of why people fail. honestly.
Absolutely. Consistency is everything. I'm reading John Wetmore's book. Shout out to John Wetmore. And he talked about how he was never always like the number one salesperson week after week or month after month. He was always, I mean, there were some times where he was, but he was always in the top three, always. And at the end of the year, he had pretty much double the production of the second person. Why? Because he was so consistent and he wrote good quality business,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Every week it was he needed every week it was like I think 40 appointments every week. Boom, 40 appointments, 40 appointments. Because he knew that every single appointment he made, whether they showed up, whether he sold it, whether this, whether that, he was making a certain amount of money. It's a very, very good work, very, very good book, right?
So,
But I know that if I put up 10,000 in production every week, I should be getting X in deposits, which is around 24,000 in deposits, right? So I should be netting around 20-ish grand, depending on issue rates, depending on how much I work.
right.
But if I submit around 30,000 in business with around an 80% issue rate, 80 issue. Now we define issue. This is very important because everyone defines issue as something different. Issue is defined as policy gets approved, they pay their first premium. I'm going to get around anywhere between 18 to 20, anywhere between 18, 16 to 18,000, 16, no, 16 to, I don't know my chart for 16 to 19,000, right?
Hmm.
Again, depending on issue rates, depending on what products I write,
Yeah.
right? But I know if I hit 30 to 40 grand, we're going to be just fine. But
Wonderful.
I always hit that every week, depending on how much I work.
Yeah, no, you, like I said, you close up shop week after week. You're very consistent, which is, I think, again, another component of why people win in the industry is the consistency. So let me kind of ask you this to kind of keep the video short and sweet because I feel like everyone's gotten so many good nuggets. Looking at your journey and looking at the scope of someone who is newer in the space, maybe they're about to get licensed or they're like 3, 6 months in and they're struggling. What are some areas that you would say kind of look around if you're seeing this in your situation? You may not be in a good situation,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean, whether that's like looking at your numbers or your upline or the IMO, like what are some things that you would caution agents on?
Yeah, so for final expense in particular, because naturally persistency is going to be lower with final expense. I know this because I've done both mortgage protection, I've done final expense. The challenge is that a lot of the people we deal with are on very fixed incomes and they're probably going to miss payments. Policies are probably going to lapse. That is okay. So strictly for final expense, number one, when you first start out, separate your accounts. Just you got to do that right away. Okay. And if you mess up like I did, what I did was I actually just opened up another account and made that my personal account because I had all my deposits set up with both. And I'm like, okay, moving every single carrier bank account over is going to be a pain in the you know what. So I just opened up another one. That's my personal. Right. So that's a way to kind of save yourself. It's not okay. It's okay if you haven't done that in the beginning because I didn't. Okay. Tracking your data religiously. So dials, contacts, appointments, everything. You need a spreadsheet of every single client. Did they pay their first premium? If not, what happened? And try to find a way to remediate it. When you're selecting your carrier choice for final expense, they need to be true Social Security. No ifs, ands, or buts. All right. And I particularly only write 2-level carriers. For me, it's AmAm. The reason why I love AmAm is because they are the easiest carrier to work with, hands down. I don't need to call them every 2 seconds to figure out what's going on with the case. I could go onto the live chat bot and pretty much do anything I need to do. Right. So if you're a high volume agent, high volume is around, I'd say north of 30, around 30,000 a month. You cannot spend a lot of time on phone calling carriers trying to get stuff issued or figure out what's going on. Right. So I love AMM for that chat bot. They're pretty lenient when it comes to underwriting. They pay on issue, right? Which is when they pay no part. They pay on approval once the case has fully been approved. So it's good for cash flow. And then I also use Baltimore Life. They have a live chat. It's not as good as AMM's. Baltimore Life, if you're watching this, please make that better. But again, they have a medium issue rate. They have like medium level underwriting. So I go in the middle, right? I'm a big believer that the cheapest is not always the best, but I keep 2-level carriers, right? And then like a GTL. I don't write a lot of I don't write a lot of AIG business because it's terrible persistency. For
Horrible.
me, it's 13-month persistency for me is like around 50, just trash,
Mine
right?
is like 42. Like I counted mine AIG like 42%. And I'm like, this
Terrible.
is why? Why even?
Yeah, I have it as earned. I'll write it like if someone really really wants it, but it's like it's more of like a tool to get referrals. But point being is 2-level carriers, they have to have good agent service. They have to have medium underwriting. And they have to pay on approval. So I keep that cash flow going, right?
Yeah.
And they have to be really good at remediating missed payments, right? It's a big pain in the what when someone misses a payment, but it's really nice if a carrier makes it easy to get that back in
Back
the
on the
books.
books. Yeah.
So 2 carriers, don't spread your business too thin. Spread your business too thin, you get a charge back over here for $1,500. You get a charge back over here for $1,000. You're going to start feeling a lot of mental stress, and you're going to have to start paying off for things cash. So a big thing to do is stick to 2 carriers, get really, really good at their underwriting, just write it with them. Boom, 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 boom. Unless you have to replace it, or unless it's like a really unique case where someone has like MS and they have myasthenia gravis, or they have a bunch of conditions,
Yeah.
and then make sure your business is getting issued. But I challenge you to actually ask yourself how hard and consistently you're working, because chances are, guys, you're probably not working that hard, or you're not doing something right. Whether it's not getting enough leads, whether it's not actually getting your business issued. Like there has to be something that if you don't see it, somebody else is going to see it that's actually making money. So
Yes.
get some data, go to someone that's actually making money, and they'll be able to tell you pretty darn quick what's going wrong. But you got to be honest with yourself, guys. I mean, it's a business, and you got to make sure you have enough cash coming in. So keep your carrier list lean, really,
Agreed.
really lean. Like if you
Agreed.
look at my deposits for the month, it's like Baltimore, maybe AIG pay through, maybe a random Aetna pay through, but it's pretty much those 2 carriers, right? And if I do get a chargeback one of those carriers, I don't even really notice it,
Right,
because
because
it's
you
getting
don't let off
outridden.
the gas. You keep riding it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, that's why my
exactly.
chargeback fund is so small, because I'm the same. I have my 2 main carriers, and so if something gets charged back, like it'll eat that chargeback up really fast, and I'll still get deposits. Like you don't even
Correct.
feel it.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Wonderful.
That was a big mistake I made, like running like 10 carriers, and I was like, I wasn't really making any money. I was selling a lot, but I was like, wow, why I have
Yes.
no money in my account?
Yes, no, that was my struggle too in the beginning of this year. I was writing multiple different carriers, and it doesn't work. The formula doesn't make sense in Final Expense. It really
No, it
doesn't.
doesn't. It
So have
doesn't.
a
Shout
lead
out to
carrier that you go with for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. And then that means, I mean, once when you start getting big enough, that means if you're putting enough production with that one carrier and you have a team, once when you're doing like 700,000 with your team, you could go to them like, hey, we want a direct contract, and then you could even get a higher contract, right? That's the
Mhm.
goal when it comes to being like really successful in the industry, is getting the top contract. And if you have a team, you don't even need to be doing that much business, but you could actually go to them and say, hey, we want a direct contract.
Yeah.
That means way more spread for you. I mean, that's a little more like high end in the future, but
But
for the
that just
beginning
is, this
guys,
industry is so fruitful. That just goes
it
how
can
like
be. Yeah,
there's like no ceiling, there's no cap here. It's really the limits you put on yourself. I mean, really, because you can
yeah,
do so much in the effect space. So let me
yeah.
ask you this, Max, because I know, are you actively like I know you said you're not, but then you might. Are you growing a team? Are you doing any kind of
Soon,
mentorship? Where are you at with that?
very, very soon. I'm honestly just working on negotiating contracts, top contracts with certain carry IMOs, and then finding out what the IMO has to offer. So we are looking at an IMO. They have a lot of their CRM is very built out. The CRM also comes with a payment verification, which is huge.
Nice.
There's nothing worse than getting a policy submitted and approved and getting paid for it, and there's one number off on the account number,
Yeah.
and you can't get the person back on the phone. Oh my gosh, that has cost me so much money. So we're
Yeah.
looking at a carrier that actually has that integrated, and they have pretty good contracts and back end support, right?
Nice.
So it's not, to me, it's not all about like getting the top contract. I mean, that's great and all, but having back end support and
Oh
like
yeah.
an IMO that has like that kind of infrastructure is very, very important, right?
Yeah.
So soon, probably the beginning quarter of
Of
2025 is
25.
when I'll really start building.
Okay, so let me ask you
So
this. If someone's like watching you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Maxwell, he's like cut from the same vine," and you're resonating with someone, how can they reach out to you so that they could, if ever when you do open the floodgates, you can let them know, "Hey, the door's open and I'm interviewing or doing whatever." Like, can they email you? Do you want to give out your information, or do you just want to say, "Ask Ashley in the future"? I mean,
yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's Max is well Baker, because my name is actually Maxwell, but everyone calls me Max. Max is well Baker. You can DM me there. I talk to a lot of agents. There's a link on there It's called Agent Consult. Whether you want to talk about leads, whether you want to talk about this, when you talk about that, we can. Eventually, I will start building. I just don't have the contracts
Yeah,
set up yet.
totally
Right.
fine. Well, you heard it. Max is well. Did you say that? Say that
And
again?
then Baker.
Baker. Yes, Max is well Baker on Instagram. Thank you so much, Max, for your insight. If you guys have questions or you want clarity or just insight, go to his Instagram and click on that link that he mentioned. But thank you so much for your time, Max.
Thank you.